Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Change.org. Petitioning Donald Trump. Criminally investigate these government employees. To Donald Trump, United States President. We the people of Miami, hereby bring to your attention with a demand for a criminal investigation. Instances of fraud and misuse of government resources by the Miami-Dade TV personnel in the Communications Department of Miami-Dade County Government. Instances of creation of false government documents and retaliation within the department to intimidate and attack whistleblowers to cover up the fraud and abuse of public trust against Miami residents occurring at the Communications Department, mainly in Miami-Dade TV. Intentionally injuring an employee while on the job as part of the retaliation by management to that employee, for which the Miami taxpayers now have to pay all of that employee's medical bills because management intentionally ignored the documented warnings to prevent the injury from occurring. Failure of executive management to respond to these issues, raising the prospect of complicity in the above behavior, to the detriment of public service and loss of money for Miami residents. Result: the status quo reigns and taxpayers pay the financial price. The details of fraud and misuse of county funds by employees and supervisors includes, but is not limited to, employees falsifying government records in order to be paid for non-existent work projects and to cover up fraud. An employee who filed several official written complaints with evidence documented this falsification. An employee using publicly owned equipment in a publicly owned facility to engage in outside, freelance employment for 10 years as documented evidence shows. To make outside money while on county time. Employees and a supervisor taking county equipment home without authorization to make money with that equipment on freelance jobs. Management continuously taking a county vehicle home on the weekends for personal use. Management stealing an employee's identity to open a private account under that employee's name when the employee was unwilling to partake in the scheme, for the express purpose of storing county records outside the county. Despite the employee's protests, the account was set up. The employee filed an official complaint and once again the issue was covered up and never truthfully investigated. Taking someone's identity is illegal. An employee sleeping on the job in an official government vehicle, documented with a photograph and an official complaint. Supervisory employees and the staff they manage routinely reporting for work late, leaving early, taking 2.5 hours of lunch breaks, yet being paid for a full day's work. Full-time MDTV employees working an average of 35% to 45% of the time while doing absolutely nothing related to work the remaining of the time. Again, being paid for a full day's work every day. Also documented with evidence. Management taking vacation leave to go work freelance jobs elsewhere, hence being paid twice for the day. Once by the taxpayers and the other by the freelance job. Management providing false statements about the issues in the communications department to the mayor's office to cover up the situations and make it seem like the situations have been resolved. False information making its way into public records, which are then being given to the public at a cost to the public in violation of Miami-Dade County's Bill of Rights. Management giving themselves and bad employees outstanding beyond amazing evaluation sheets in order to get higher salaries every year. Despite all the evidence of fraud against them. Management withheld information from being turned into the Human Resources Department in order to cover up the issues because that information exposed even more department fraud. Violations of Miami-Dade County Honor Code. Background: the MDTV division became nationally notorious in the news on 2013 by producing the so-called holiday videos using county equipment, facilities, and MDTV staff during their work hours. In different segments, employees were shown in sexually inappropriate behavior, drinking alcohol, danced Gangnam Style in their offices and did the Harlem Shake inside the county commission chambers, even digitally adding themselves as standing on the dais. In one scene, a male employee aggressively air-humped the vacant space in what the communications department management later claimed was a team-building exercise, proving the lack of work, standards, and management ability in the department. These facts are a disgrace to the taxpayers of Miami. These offenses were met with just a 5-day suspension for one individual, which is emblematic of the tepid response of county management to the rule-breaking, unprofessional, and criminal conduct exhibited by the MDTV employees. When the disciplined employee resigned in April of 2015, the problem did not get fixed, because it is most employees who take part in this type of behavior. The established culture that allowed such an embarrassment remains in place and continues to this day. At the end of 2015, MDTV was once again in TV news twice, this time for fraudulent and grosser mismanagement behavior of county funds. Since April of 2015, beginning with the delivery of an 8-page letter drafted by a whistleblowing MDTV employee, there have been documented reports of fraud, inappropriate gross mismanagement of funds and equipment by employees and supervisors, displaying a huge managerial incompetence within MDTV, resulting in employee dereliction and a waste of taxpayer dollars. No one is held to any standards and everyone is expected to participate in this type of behavior or be removed from the department. These documented incidents have been met by Communications Director with a shocking determination to avoid an investigation at all costs for the purpose of covering up the situations. To the Communications Department, if the public doesn't know, it never happened. Most involved parties have experienced no real corrective action. In the other hand, employees who are against these types of actions are forced to resign or are fired. At least one employee active in bringing improper conduct to light has been fired, while another was forced to resign, and yet another is currently being forced to resign due to much retaliation, harassment, intimidation to ultimately badger them into resigning. 2 involved parties have been transferred to other departments within Miami-Dade County government, thereby removing them from the scene to present an all-is-well facade. But, no actual investigation was done against those employees. Instances of retaliation against whistleblowing employees include harassment, intimidating and threatening behavior directly to whistleblowing employees; unfairness, denying work assignments to whistleblowing employee to tell him there's no work for him and, therefore, he must go home; uneven discipline, over-supervising a whistleblowing employee and initiating false disciplinary action over petty issues, even though other employees who committed actual crimes are not held accountable; shunning, segregating the whistleblowing employees by removing them from the workplace by reassignment or being fired. Examples of ineffective county responses: the decision to take no action against the supervisor who initiated the identity theft situation noted above, despite an official finding of the whistleblowing employee having been justified in filing the complaint. Valid, documented complaints with evidence forwarded to the mayor's office, county commissioners, the inspector general's office and the Commission on Ethics have failed to result in effective action to stop fraud and financial waste by managers and employees and has proven to be complicit. Failure to investigate the creation of false government records. Failure to enforce federal whistleblower protection laws. Failure to investigate an intentional on-the-job injury against an employee. All the documents supporting these facts are preserved and can be made available to your investigators. President Donald Trump, we believe you are a person of integrity worthy of the position of immense public trust you now hold. We are confident that your personal integrity and statutory responsibilities will result in a full-scale investigation of these serious matters and a spotlight on the waste, mismanagement, and fraud outlined above, and a full accounting being required from those responsible. When a civilian gives government false documents for the purpose of obtaining money, that civilian is investigated; therefore, so too must government employees be investigated when they provide false documents to obtain money. While Miami residents work for their income and have taxes taken from them, county government employees simply get paid with that tax money for free without having worked for it. Therefore, with respect, we the people of Miami, request an investigation be launched immediately. Miami residents deserve it. This petition will be delivered to Donald Trump.
Does the government work for us, or do we work for the government? Tonight, what if the Constitution no longer applied? What if the whole purpose of the Constitution was to limit the government? What if Congress's enumerated powers in the Constitution no longer limited Congress, but were actually used as a justification to extend Congress's authority over every realm of human life? What if the president, meant to be an equal to Congress, has instead become a democratically elected, term-limited monarch? What if the president assumed that everything he did was legal just because he's the president? What if he could interrupt your regularly scheduled radio and TV programming for a special message from him? What if he could declare war on his own? What if he could read your emails and your texts without a search warrant? What if he could kill you without warning? What if Supreme Court justices no longer looked to the Constitution to determine the constitutionality of a law, but rather simply to what justices who preceded them thought about it? What if the rights and principles guaranteed in the Constitution have been so distorted in the past 200 years as to be unrecognizable by the founders? What if the 50 states were no longer sovereign entities, equals to each other, and parents of the federal government they voluntarily constituted? What if the states were mere provinces of a totally nationalized and fully centralized government? What if the Constitution was amended stealthily, not by constitutional amendments duly ratified by the states, but by the constant and persistent expansion of the federal government's role in our lives? What if the federal government decided if its own powers were proper and constitutional? What if the Constitution were no longer the supreme law of the land? What if you needed a license from the government to speak, to assemble, or to protest against the government? What if the government didn't like what you planned to say, and so it didn't give you the license? What if the right to keep and bear arms only applied to the government? What if posse comitatus, the federal law that prohibits our military from occupying our streets, were no longer in effect? What if the government considered the military an adequate dispenser of domestic law enforcement? What if cops looked and acted like troops and you couldn't distinguish the military from the police? What if you were not secure in your person, in your papers, and in your property? What if federal agents could write their own search warrants in defiance of the Constitution? What if the government could decide when you were and were not entitled to a jury trial? What if the government could take your property whenever it wanted? What if the government could continue prosecuting you until it got the verdict it wanted? What if the government could force you to testify against yourself simply by labeling you a domestic terrorist? What if the government could torture you until you said what the government wanted to hear? What if people running for president actually supported torture? What if the government tortured your children to get to you? What if government judges and government lawyers intimidated juries into convicting the innocent? What if the government could send you to your death and your innocence meant nothing so long as the government's procedures were followed? What if America's prison population, the largest in the world, was a cruel and unusual way for a country to be free? What if half the prison population never harmed anyone but themselves? What if the people had no rights except those the government chose to let them have? What if the states had no rights except to do as the federal government commanded? What if our elected officials didn't really live among us, but instead all had their hearts and homes in Washington, D.C.? What if the government could strip you of your rights because of where your mother was when you were born? What if the income tax was unconstitutional? What if the states were convinced to give up their representation in Congress? What if the government tried to ban you from using a substance in your body that is older than the government itself? What if voting didn't mean anything anymore because both political parties stand for big government? What if the government could write any law, regulate any behavior, and tax any event? The Constitution be damned. What if the government was the reason we don't have a Constitution anymore? What if you could love your country but hate what the government has done to it? What if sometimes to love your country you had to alter or abolish the government? What if Jefferson was right? What if that government is best which governs least? What if I'm right? What if the government is wrong? What if it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong? What if it is better to perish fighting for freedom than to live as a slave? What if freedom's greatest hour of danger is now?
County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave a, let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt-free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.